I'm currently
Yeah,
working with.
Sanjay, I have joined
Yeah.
your previous demo session.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, okay. Janak, you can't hear me? Janak, can you hear me? Yes, I'm skeptical about saying that, okay, I want only these tools. Why not the other tools? So, if you just look at I'll give you just an idea. It's there's a company called Zabbia periodic table. So there's a company called Zabbia. So what they did is they took all the tools that are available in market. Almost they covered all the 90% of the tools that are available in market, and they just created one periodic table, something like this. So if I have to cover all this, right, it will take almost like 6 months. So what I'm going to do is, this is one set of tools. So the one which is in yellow stands for SCM. So, oh, I forgot, this is one more role. So some companies, for build and release guys, they call it as SCM also, software configuration management people, SCM guys. So we add those words also in the resume. So now if you see, one set is called the SCM, means software configuration, where developers code is stored. Okay, so there are a lot of tools in it. So as part of our training, we're going to cover GitHub, Git, I'll cover SVN. Okay, and the next one, right? The next, sorry, what happened? I'll just refresh this. I think it got struck or something. This website seems to be struck. Okay, and the next one comes with the deployment tools. On the database management, we don't do anything with the database because we have database admins. And next, coming to the builds, I'll cover Maven. Okay, I'll cover MS Build. This one, MS Build. So Maven and MS Build. And next, coming to the tools, I'll cover JUnit, which is what we are going to integrate in the test cases. And then next comes to the Artifactory. We'll use Artifactory, we'll use Nexus. So in every part, I'm going to use one or two tools so that you guys are familiar how the tool works, what is the concept behind the tool, why do we use that tool, and how do we integrate that tool with different other tools. That's what is going to be for the sessions. So today's session is just going to be like a demo. So in the demo session of today, I'm going to cover what exactly is the DevOps role. So if a company is recruiting for a DevOps, okay, what exactly is DevOps, and why does company require us, and what are the key things you're going to work, what would be the work style that it's going to be, and the last one I would say, what are the tools that we are going to cover as part of this session. Okay, any other expectations you guys have before I start? And at any point of time, if you guys don't understand any topic or anything, then and there itself, please stop me and ask me to repeat, because I don't want you guys to tell almost at the end of the topic I didn't understand there, because it'll be really difficult to go back again. So if you guys doesn't want to break the flow, so you guys just drop the message here saying that Sanjay, I have a doubt or something, just drop a message, so that once I complete that sentence or the topic or that para, I'll answer your question. If you guys want me to repeat again, I'll repeat it then and there itself. Okay, and one expectation I have from you guys is, every day at the end of the session, two things I want you guys to do. The first thing is, what all we have, you guys are going to have the recording, right? So practice it on your system. Second thing is, I'm going to give you guys a task. I'm going to give you guys one task. So search on net and then try to complete the task. If you guys still have time, for example, today we are going to discuss a topic called Jenkins, for example. So I'll give you one task to do it. And once your task is done, just search it on net also, what all additional things that it can be. When you search, if you don't understand anything what has you have searched, come back to me with the questions. I'm happy to answer them. Okay? Any other questions anyone has?
Yeah,
before I start?
hi Sanjay. Hi Sanjay, sorry to disturb you.
Yeah.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
The first one, like the developer whoever planning to for the DevOps engineer or a developer, like what is the minimum prerequisite skills, and what are the capabilities, and what kind of companies are offering this DevOps job, like opportunities? I mean,
okay,
the
I'll go,
areas.
okay,
Like
I'll go bit by
econ.
I'll go bit
Okay.
by bit. Okay. Now, first coming to the prerequisite, I would say you don't require any prerequisite if you can. Even interviews, right? In the interviews, even when we sit for interviews or when we attend the interviews, they just ask the process. So if you know the process, how to implement, and if you can convince them, you can get into the company. Okay. And prerequisite for you to survival is you should know a little bit how to search on net and then fix the problem. And second thing is, if you're able to make good relationship with the people around, they'll help you. Because already what we're going to do, developer would have done it on his local system. So if you have good relation with the developer and all, you should be able to do. And if you wanted to excel a little bit, I would say you need to know a little bit of scripting. Okay, shell scripting or Perl, any little bit is good. Otherwise, I'm going to cover that in our topics. Okay, does it answer your first part of the question, Jenna?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. The second part of the question you asked, right? What type of companies do we have? Okay. I would say 99% of the IT companies have DevOps or build and release. Any company you name requires it. Why do we require it? Okay. If you have a developer and a tester in the company, you'll require a build and release or a DevOps guy. Because I'll cover that, Jenna, otherwise. Okay?
Okay.
I'll cover that. Harish, I made you as organizer so you can record the session. Okay, you have a recording button at the below. You can record the session. Which will have like something like record this meeting. Okay? So what exactly is the DevOps role? What we are going to do? So if I look at my role on a day-to-day basis, right? On a day-to-day basis, 20% or 30% of my work goes on emails, sending emails, or going to people and talking with them, saying that what release, when it is going. So a lot of communication you do with the people. So a lot of collaboration you do with different people. When I say different people, who are these different people in the company? The one word which you guys need to know is SDLC lifecycle. How does a software get built in a company? Take a scenario, I have to build an Amazon website. So first a person will have a thought like, okay, I have a product, I require a website for it. Then initially comes the business analysts. These are the people who have, I would say 40% or 30% knowledge on the coding they'll have, and or they can be from the testing background, they become the BS. Developers or testers become the BS, and they'll have almost 70% of business knowledge, saying that what should be the flow. For example, you want to build an Amazon website, you log into the website, create the logins, and then you need to select some onboard the first what products you want, and then buy the products, and then it goes to the payment gateway, and then it goes for shipping. So these guys have a lot of business knowledge of the flow, how it needs to work. So these guys, what they do is on a paper or on an Excel, some document, they create one document saying that the website needs to look like this, and this is how it needs to be. So they plan it. After that is done, the whole document gets moved to the developer. So what developer does is, according to the document, right? According to the document, he writes the code, and then they decide whether it's going to be a Java or a .NET or CBL, SAP, whatever language or what technology they want to choose, they take it from there. And for us as DevOps, we do majorly for two technologies. One is for .NET, one is for Java technology. So till Java and .NET exist, they will require a DevOps or a build and release guy. Okay. Next, after the code is ready, we give it for testing. Testers, what they do is they test whether the requirement matches or are there any bugs. All this they do the testing. Once the testing is done, the whole code moves to the production environment where you have the end people using it. Something like your www.amazon.com. So it will be the end users who will be using it. So at every phases, first design phase, next is the development phase, and the next one is the testing phase and the release phase. So at every phases, we are going to play an important role. First at the design phase. So what will happen is if there's a new requirement or anything, the BS consult us and ask us, guys, do we have the required servers, or what is the server configuration needs to be, all this they're going to ask us. And the next one is the development phase. So we're going to every day, day in, day out, we are going to deal with the developers in many aspects. First aspect, they write the code. Whether the code can be in Java or .NET, what it is, they're going to ask us, Sanjay, I have the code written, where should I store this code so that even others can use my code? So you'll have, that is the software configuration management, that I'll touch. But for now, if you guys don't have any idea, just think that I have 20, 30 developers. They write some code. Okay, they write some code. It can be in Java or .NET. They decide. They write the code. So what we are going to do is the whole code what is being written day in and day out, we are going to store somewhere. We are going to store that code somewhere, and at the end of the day or when it is required, we are going to take the whole code. It's like some raw code. Okay, it's like a raw code. We are going to take that raw code and then we are going to bundle it. That is called build. So using some build mechanisms, what we are going to do is take that raw code, we are going to bundle as like some zip file. Take it as a zip file. So the whole n number of files is being bundled into one zip file. We take this zip file, give it to the testers. What they do is testers test it. So if there are any issues, they again come back and say they raise a bug, developer fixes, again we create a bundle, we give it to them. So we're going to closely work with these two guys. And the next one is production environment, where you take the same bundle which you created, tested, and put it on the production environment where an end user can use it. Okay, so your role is, it's going to play an important role within all these. So when if I put it on a Venn diagram, how does it look like? Yes, this looks like this. So as long as you have a development going on in .NET or Java and you have a testers, your role will be required. So obviously when you say an IT company, it has both development and testing roles. So you are required to do the build and release. Okay. So now, if you look at this Venn diagram, we first the role it is going to have high visibility role. This is a high visibility role, and obviously since high visibility, it's going to be a little challenging also because you might deal with different people. A developer, if you have a developer, the developer might be dealing with a tester max. Or if he's a high-end developer, he'll deal with the DevOps guy, he has to deal with others also. Okay, but for us, even from the start, you're going to deal with a lot of people. Okay, and most important thing is attitude depends here. So whenever a task comes, it's up to you to decide the priorities. How can you deal with the people? So if you're dealing with the people, DevOps will really help you guys. You're going to excel in this. Okay, now how does it work? When I say developer, a development team, a testing team, and the last one is your technology operations team. As I said, developer, he writes the code, you take the code, you bundle it using the build mechanisms and you give it to the testing team. Testing team, what it does, it takes the code and then it tests it. At the end, you need to take this code and put it on the production environment. There comes the technology operation comes. For example, I have a Amazon website again. So your goal is to take that new code and put it on the Amazon website so that the end user can use it. But when you wanted to put it on the production environment where end user can use it, you can't directly go and put it. You have to take a lot of approvals, right? People might be using it. You need to have correct mechanism. When you put the code, it might work or it might not work. So there'll be a lot of approvals you need to take. So from whom are you going to take is from the operations guys. These are the people who have almost like I would say more than 15 years experience in the company, who are like ITL certified people. They're all ITL certified people. And these are the guys who keep monitoring the production environment, and these guys are assessed based on the availability of the production environment. So if any issue happens on the production environment, your revenue is lost. So your revenue is lost, their assessment goes for a toss. So these people always keeps on assessing how much available is your production environment, are there any issues on the production environment. So you need to seek their permission. Okay, so you need to talk to them and take the approvals to put your code onto the production environments. That's the reason your role revolves around all these people. And any questions till here, guys, before I go to the next slide? Any questions? Am I going fast, slow? Are you guys okay with the pace?
Yeah, I have a small question, Sanjay here.
Yeah, Jana.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. When
Good.
like a programmer or like developer build a code and the tester is keeping in a like some folder or something to make it in one kind of thing. So where like develop exactly the DevOps guy involved in between them. And
Okay.
again, like you said, second question is like we need to take some approvals and need to be satisfy them all the right. So where our part will be started, the priority.
Okay. Uh, to answer this question, I'll start how actually this build and release role started. Earlier, what I
Right.
used to happen is in a company, there's no role like build and release or DevOps. So even when I'm in college, right, 8 years or 8.5 years back, we used to say, I'll become a database administrator, or I'll become a developer, or I'll become a tester. You are not aware of
Right.
this role and all. So what
Right.
happened is, earlier in those times, there was no such role. So developer, what he used to do is, we used to have a methodology called the waterfall methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we just need to, I think it's good you raise this question. So what used to happen is, earlier it was the waterfall methodology. Like, you get a requirement, you give a requirement today, and they
Mm-hmm.
used to take 3 months. It's called the quarterly release or a half-yearly release. So
Of
you
course.
do get a requirement, developers do their coding, and developer itself, he used to do the builds. Okay, he used to do the builds, and the same he used to give to the tester, and tester used to do it and then put it on production environment. So they used to have almost like 3 months. So if an end user wants to see a change on production environment, it used to take nearly of 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But now things have changed. So now the methodology is called agile methodology.
Okay.
In agile, the pace of development is high. Like,
Mm-hmm.
anytime a requirement is given, you need to move it to production in less than 1 month. There are companies, in my company, we call in 15 days, every new change goes to production. A requirement is given, 15 days, you have to put the code on production. And even in this 15 days, a requirement might change also sometimes. Requirement
Mm-hmm.
keeps on changing sometimes. Okay? And second thing what happens is, take a scenario, in the old scenario, developer is doing the build. Here also, everyone are in a race, right? You have to complete your development given work, and tester has to complete. So
Correct.
no one has time to take the code, everyone's code, build it, bundle it, and then put it on production. Because this is not a development work as such. A developer, how is he assessed? On the code you write, right? On the code you write, and tester on what you are testing. But they want a guy who can do this task other than development and testing. Earlier, they used to say DevOps role, there was no value actually. When I started also, it used to be like an extra role
Okay.
because there's no value add to the project earlier. But of late, what happened is, when this role has come into picture, what happens? They started seeing a lot of value for it. Like what? I still remember one of the scenario when I was working for a Barclays project. So once what
Mm-hmm.
happened is, I was on leave. So developer, he did the build. He knows how to do. He did the build. He gave the build to the testers. So what did he do? Tester raised a bug. So what he said is, hey, wait here, why to do a build? I'll make the file change. So what he did, he logged into the testing environment where tester is testing. He made a code file change. Then and there itself. Tester was satisfied, and then he fixed the bug. But at the end, what will happen? The package which is built goes to the production environment, not the one which is deployed. So
Mm-hmm.
they took the same package and put it on production environment. So what happened? Again, that bug failed on the production environment because tester was testing and he fixed it on the tester's environment, not on the main code which was going. So that's the reason they wanted a guy who has less or no knowledge on the code. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that is how value added to this. And then what happened is, okay, this guy he's helping on minimizing the production bugs. Then what it did is, companies like Zabbia, okay,
Mm-hmm.
these companies started creating the tools for DevOps. So what, earlier to do a build, I used to run a command line. But now we have a lot of DevOps tools. You just click one button, the whole code goes on. That I'll show you.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So they started creating value. And now you are having your DevOps guy who's doing your whole complete release work, where your developer can concentrate on your development, tester can concentrate on the testing work, and the whole release work is done by this DevOps guy. So
Oh,
he is like a catalyst. Okay, he
right.
is speeding up the whole process of development. So if you look
Yes.
at the companies like Flipkart, right? Flipkart and
Right.
Amazon, when a requirement comes, in 6 hours, the change is there on production environment. That is the pace of they have. Because
Okay.
complete release cycle is automated by DevOps guys. That's what we are going to do actually. We're going to,
Okay.
and some companies, in my company also, we stopped using the word as DevOps. We are calling it as developer productivity. We are the team of developer productivity because we are pacing up the whole process altogether. Okay, does it answer your question, Jana?
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So if you look, right, why do we require? I think I covered half of the problem already. What is the work of a developer? Or when do you think, yes, developer says, yes, my work is done?
Right. According to the requirement, he will write a code and he will let from the job, and then we will do the testing. And
No, I'm just talking about only developer. I'm just talking only
okay.
developer. When do you think developer's work is done? When do you
I'm
guys
not.
say, okay?
I say like this if I'm wrong. Like whenever we got in a small requirement, he'll try to build a program according to the requirement. Then he will check based upon the business requirement document. Okay. Then he will leave from the job. I mean, he will away from the
what? Okay, you have written a code. Okay, your requirement is given. You have done the coding. After that, do you think your work is done? Well, who will fix the bugs after the tester say when he's testing there are bugs which come out? So who's going to test it? A developer again, right? He only has to fix it.
In developer scenario, he might know, like he will think that always it's working. But when test on the product, I mean program everything, he will find bugs. Then developer need to be debug it.
So same developer needs to fix it, right? So his work is still not done, right? His work is still not done. Take a scenario, the same code I'm taking it, putting on production environment. There is some issue which happened in production environment. So who will be the first guy who has to fix it? Again, the same developer because he'll have the background. So a developer's work is done when his code moves to production environment and it is working fine there. Okay, that is the work of development. So every time he says, Sanjay, as soon as possible, take my code and put it on production environment so that I can be relieved. Now the same way, okay, the same way, when is the work of the operation guys done? So operation guys work will be done. Okay, what is his role? His role is to monitor the production environment and always to see that production is up and running. Right?
Correct.
Now take a scenario on a Black Friday. This is, or in our scenario, take like any one of the festivals. So what would be the use of a, I'm again talking about the Amazon website. So if you look at right in US and all, on a Black Friday, lot of people log into the website and do a lot of shopping because there are a lot of sales going on.
Correct.
I have a developer who has been given requirement 2 days before the Black Friday. Okay, 2 days before the Black Friday, a task is given to the developer to do the code. And operation guys' role is always to monitor the Amazon website to see that the website is up and running. So what will be scenario at that time is a developer will say, Sanjay, can you take my code and put it ASAP on the production, as soon as possible, put it on the production environment. But operation guy will be, he'll always say, no, Sanjay, don't put any code on production. Don't put any code on production, boss, because if this code goes on, if anything bad goes down, the whole website goes for a toss and I'll be screwed. So how are you going to break the wall of confusion? So if you look at those two people, they're doing their job right. But how are you going to break the wall of confusion? It's our responsibility to break the wall of confusion. What we'll say is, okay, developer, I'll take your code and then using the DevOps standard tools, you're going to apply them on the code and then create some strategy or the data, which will take the data to the operation guys and you'll say, boss, I'll take this code and put it on production. If it doesn't work immediately, I'll roll back the change. Okay, I'll immediately roll back the change so that there's no effect for it. Okay, so what will happen is when you give the data and when you convince people, they'll accept. So that is the role of a DevOps guy, always to go with the data and then use the tools which will give you the data out. For example, there's a tool like Sonar, which is a DevOps tool we're going to learn. So when you put it on the developer's code, it will tell you what is the quality of code he has written. So you can take that data and tell them, boss, this is it. And then we're going to use some tools like in AWS. So if your website is running on Amazon server of 1-2 servers, so what you'll do is Using AWS, you'll deploy the code. If the code is working fine, you'll point the URL to that code. If it is not working, you leave the URL to the servers which has got the old code. So using a lot of DevOps tools, we are going to achieve this. So that is how it's going to be an easy life for them. Okay, any questions you guys have before I go to the next slide?
No, you can.
What about others? Pradeep, Harish, Shravani? Any questions you guys have?
I am fine, Sanjay.
Okay. So how are we going to do this? Earlier what used to happen is there is something called a DevOps transition which used to happen. How does that happen? First thing is when you're doing DevOps means what you're doing, you're trying to make life easy for people by bringing new tool set, by bringing new tools. So the first thing is there'll be a lot of people, what we call are the bureaucrats. So these people, what they'll do is they don't allow any new change. They won't allow any new change. Take a scenario I'll give you. When I traveled to US, we had one database administrator. This guy's work is only simple. Every day at 11 o'clock or 11:30 I think. At 11:30 a.m. US time, a file comes from SAP. He has to take that file, okay? He has to take that file and put it in the SQL Server database and then create a report. That's the work, major work. So from SAP, after it runs in SAP, there's a file which gets generated and then that file is consumed by the Oracle database and then it'll create a report saying that what is the organization structure, who reports to whom and all. That's his work. So every day 11:30 he waits for that file and sees in the shared drive. If that file is there, then automatically your SQL or the database server picks that file, consumes it and then creates a report out of it. So he used to monitor it every day, it is working or fine. Then we said, why do you monitor every day? We'll put something in place, something like I'll create a simple job, Jenkins job. What it will do is it will go and then poll and then checks if the file available at 11:30. Yes, process it. No, it will send you an email alert or it will give you a phone call saying that file is not available. Go and do it. So that's the automation we wanted to put so that there is no manual intervention there. But this guy started saying that what will happen if your tool goes down? So there'll be all of no's or there'll be a lot of stoppers which will happen. So you need to break them. How do you break them? The first thing is you have to select right set of tools. So if you're doing a DevOps work for .NET and Java projects, you need to select right set of tools. Take a scenario I'm going to do for Java project. You can't take Microsoft tools to do your Java, like a place where you store the code. So Microsoft has its own tool called TFS, Team Foundation Server. You can't put that tool to do your Java works. So always select right set of tools and also you select which is the easy tool so that even others also will be adaptable to that tool. For example, take your project is a simple project, okay? And for continuous integration, don't take tools like Bamboo or anything because Bamboo and all, it's like when you have a high-end development going on. If you have a simple development, simple tools, take tools like Jenkins, which everyone is very easy to use, okay? Or take a scenario, I have a task to copy a file from one location to another. Just write a simple command. Don't go ahead and write a Python script for that. You can write a small batch script or a small shell script, which is operating system's language. Don't again go and write a Python for that. So always select right set of tools for the requirement. That will be actually main challenge for you guys, actually, if I say. So for the requirement, what will be the best fit? If you can select it, your job is done. Because if you select the tool, everything will be on net. You can know how to integrate with different tools and your work gets easy. Okay, the next one is sufficient time in hand is very important. The reason is, I told you, right, we are in an agile methodology. So if you're any new change you wanted to do, you have to do it in that release cycle. In my company, if any new change, we try to put it in the 15-day cycle. Otherwise, if you can't do it, everything gets hampered because for doing a deployment, I use a tool called Nolio and you wanted to replace it with Chef. So what will happen? You have 15 days time because the next release cycle starts again. In the 15 days, try to implement it. If you can't implement in hand, you should know, okay, this 15 days, I can't put a new tool. So what I'll try to do is, I'll try to create a parallel environment so that the normal work is not hampered. So deployment for this cycle or next cycle, I'll use Nolio. In the parallel, I'll try to use how Chef helps me in the deployment. So I'll put first I'll do it with Nolio, and the next deployment even Nolio will be like a standby. I'll use deploy chef. If chef doesn't work, then I'll use again Nolio there itself. So always make sure you have any new, if you're bringing any new tool set, make sure that you have sufficient time in hand, add it. Okay, any questions you guys have? Any questions here?
You can go ahead. Oh, Sanjay.
Okay, okay. So the next one is, as I said, right, the second point I've already covered. You always make sure that you have the uniform tool sets that you're using so that even others can adapt it. And the next one is uniform process. So when we take the interviews also, right, we majorly ask them what are the process you guys were following in your company. If you can convince saying that for this question I'm using this process, that is done, you have cracked the interview. Okay, the reason is for every DevOps guy, the important thing is the process. When a build used to happen, you have to do it at this time. When you break the process, it will hamper you. Always make sure that when a process is set like this, follow it. Do not break the process. And normally we'll ask, what is your build timing? In interviews, what we'll ask is, Sanjay, what regular intervals you do the builds? You can't say as and when it is required, I do the builds. You can't say that. You'll tell, okay, we have this is the process. Whenever a developer checks in the code, a normal build happens automatically. This is one process. Or second thing, whenever nightly build or everyday night, this build happens. Or sometimes developers reach out to us asking for the builds. We do the builds for them and give the package. So that is we call it as ad hoc basis, which we don't encourage. But if it is urgent, we do it. So this is the way you need to answer it. Okay. So you should know what processes are followed when you do DevOps. Okay. So where do you add these processes is on the major three aspects, but recently a new aspect has added to the DevOps. The first one is the continuous integration. The next one is continuous delivery. The third thing is continuous deployment. The fourth one is continuous monitoring. These are the four aspects. If you say I know DevOps, you should know these topics and you should know how to implement these topics. So how does it work? I'll just give an example. How much you guys can grasp it from the example, take it. Otherwise, if you can't grasp 100% also, that is okay, because I'm going to use this slide across all the topics that we use. Across all the topics that we are going to use. What is this? The first thing is, take a scenario. I'm doing a DevOps for a .NET project. So I have a developer who writes a .NET code, and this is the place where you store the code. Okay, this is the place where you store the code. It can be TFS, Git, or SVN. So I have 20-30 developers. They write the code. They put it in this container. For now, think it is like a container. They're putting the code, and then as a DevOps guy, we take this code, we compile it using the Java compiler or .NET, right? We use the Visual Studio, we compile it. Once we compile it, we integrate the unit test what a developer writes. So to say that, okay, I've met my standard of my code, they write some unit test satisfying the functionality also. So they write some unit test, and then on top of that, we are going to use our DevOps tools, which will tell how he has written the code. Like take an example, you write a while loop, right? You can write a while loop with flower brackets, or you can write with normal brackets like C and inverted C. Code gets compiled, but he is not meeting the standards. The normal standard is like C. You can't put flower brackets for while. But the code gets compiled, but he is not meeting the standards. So in those scenarios, what we use, we put our tools like Sonar, FXCorp, .cover. We put these tools over the code what developer has written and generate a report, how he's writing the code. And then once you build and everything happens, end bundle gets created. That we call it as a build artifact. So we take that and we store it in some tools like Nexus, from where you can pull whenever you want it, and then take it using the tools like Nolio or Chef. We take that bundle and we deploy it on any server where tester can use it. So if you quickly put it, developer writes the code, puts it in the source control tools, the whole code is there. We take it from there. It's like a raw code here. We take that code, we do the compilation, which we call the build, and we put some coding standards on place to check how the code is, and at the end we create a bundle. Okay, the raw code is bundled, and that bundle we store it in tools like Nexus, from where we pull it using the deployment tools, and then we deploy it onto the server where a tester can use it. And once the tester tests it, we can put it directly on production environment. Okay, so when you say DevOps, right, so everything should be, you should know how to automate it. That's what at the end of the session you guys will learn how to automate this completely. So automatically developer puts the code here, then everything gets triggered automatically. So anything, anywhere you have an issue, then you pitch in. Otherwise, everything is automated. What is that meant? So first concept, continuous integration, is developer checks in the code into the source control. You just do the compilation, what we call as the build. If you have a very good unit test which can run in very few minutes, we integrate all of that, and that it sends a feedback. It sends a feedback to the developer telling that, boss, the new code which you have entered is good, or the new code which you have put it in the source control is bad. So that is continuous integration. Developer checks in the code, automatically build triggers, sends him the feedback saying that his code is good or bad. That is continuous integration. Okay, developer again checks in the code, build happens, you run your code coverage or code analysis to tell his standard of code, and then you store it in some tools like Nexus. So every time developer checks in the code, you run all these phases, store that end output in Nexus. That we call continuous delivery. Means your code is delivered, and at any point of time you can take the code and deploy it manually on any of the environments whenever you want it. That is continuous delivery. Now developer checks in the code, compilation happens, your build is stored here, and then using tools like Chef, you take it and automatically, if you can deploy into the environments for every check-in, that we call continuous deployment. And at any point of time, if you can monitor the servers where you're deploying to tell, okay, when I deploy the code, this is what is happening. The log files, I'm monitoring it. The services, I'm monitoring it. If you can show that, that is continuous monitoring. I'm not sure how many of you have understood this, but this I'll touch base each and every day of the session, and we'll just trace back how much we are learning from the whole implementation. Okay, the process which you guys need to know is the whole process and what tools you fit in for every set. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions?
No.
Or did you guys?
Like in the automated
can go
process, lot of.
Sorry, someone has a question. Sorry, can you repeat it?
This is Nagesh. I have a question.
Yeah, Nagesh. Yeah.
You said you build process. No, that is a part of a build and release engineer, not the DevOps engineer, right? So why do you have to combine the roles and responsibilities of build and release engineer with the DevOps engineer?
Okay. As a DevOps engineer, what we are going to do is we are going to implement everything. Build and release guy is to maintain what a DevOps guy has implemented. Okay, I'll tell you how does it differs actually in my organization also. As a DevOps guy, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the project, and what they're doing, they're manually doing the builds, or they don't have the complete CI/CD pipeline. So as a DevOps guy, you go to the project, you assess them, saying that, boss, what is your requirement, and you set up everything. Okay, you set up everything using the DevOps tools. Even if there's no deployment, everything you set up. And once you set up, what you'll do is you'll help them for doing 1-2 release cycles, and then you hand over everything to the build and release guy. So then he maintains it, and little bit any tweaks he does it. Again, as a DevOps, you go back to the next project, you implement the whole cycle. Take a scenario, you're doing deployment onto the servers. The new requirement is like you have to do it on AWS. But this build and release guy is always occupied for the doing daily builds or doing the releases. As a DevOps guy, you pitch in. Okay, as a DevOps guy, you pitch in. You implement the requirement of doing the deployment to the AWS servers. You teach him. You tell them, boss, this is how I have implemented, and then you help him for 1-2 release cycles. You come out of the project, and then a build and release guy, again he keeps on maintaining it. So from the build and release, you go here as a DevOps guy actually. Does it answer your question, Nagesh?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So you will show it on AWS, your examples and all, you will show it on AWS? Or?
Yeah, that is part of, I'll show you the next slide also, what topics that we cover. Okay, what topics do we cover and all, everything I'll show you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Amazon Web Service, Harish. I think you're basically from the server side, no? What normally happens is, okay, you guys would have monitored the servers, right? It can be physical servers or virtual servers. So Amazon's web service is on cloud. You have services on the cloud. So how do you utilize them? Okay. Any other questions anyone has?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. What all do we cover? Okay. Today, right? Today, as per the topic, we cover like what is the terminology, and then what basically I'll treat that you guys doesn't have any system. You guys doesn't have anything. So we'll install the basic things that are required onto the system, which is almost all the tools, almost like 60-70% of the DevOps tools are built on Java because it's open source. So basic thing is we'll install Java. What are the parts of Java that we require? One second, guys. So, sorry guys. So after that, we'll install some build tools like Maven, and then we'll use some tools because I want you guys to learn both Linux and .NET because we do build and release or DevOps for both the topics. Okay, we do it for Linux, we do it on Windows. So Sigwin will help you to practice some of the Linux commands till we go to the AWS and host the servers. So I'll teach you what commands that we use day in and day out. And next comes the CI tools, continuous integration tools like Jenkins we'll start with. And we'll first learn, almost 2 sessions we'll learn on Jenkins installation and then what plugins that we use, how do we set up uh, security, and then what exactly pipelines. This is called the pipeline, guys. As I said, this is called the pipeline. So everything, it will be like a pipeline, one after another. How does it run? The whole basic concept of using Jenkins we'll learn, and then I'll start with the how do we create builds, and then how do we integrate with Jenkins those builds. When I say builds, Maven builds and Maven builds is for Java, MS build is for .NET. And then next comes the artifact management. After you do the builds, how do you store it? And once you store it, how do you integrate it with Jenkins? So after the 5th session, what we'll cover is here doing the build will cover, and how do we automatically put it here. That's what we're going to learn. I'm using Jenkins. Next is code quality. How are we going to implement the DevOps? Earlier, I think Nagesh, you asked a question, right? What is the difference? Earlier, right? When I was doing build and release, we didn't have a concept at all for code quality. When you say code quality, it is the testers, they do the code quality. But now as part of DevOps, we do the code quality. We implement DevOps tools to find how the code is written by the developers using tools like Sonar. So after the end of the 6th session, the whole box of this blue box completes, and then we are going to put the code here. So code is normally we take the code from our system, we do all these phases, put the code in Nexus. And next, at the 8th, we are going to learn major topic of source code management using the tools like Git and SVN. So after this session, you'll complete this phase till here. So you take the code, you build it. So these tools we'll learn, SVN and Git, and then we do the builds, we put it in Nexus using and after running the code quality also. So this phase will complete. Next, the next one is AWS. AWS, we are going to learn how do we set up AWS, and then what are the main features it gives, and how are we going to bring up the servers, and then that's called the provisioning of the servers. And there are other topics that we learn like zone, region, and all that. So after that session, what will happen is you learn this part. You learn this part like this servers. Where do we going to deploy? And after this, what we are going to do is we're going to learn the deployment tools like Chef. Using Chef, we're going to learn what are the basics of Chef, and then after we learn it, so it will cover once your artifact is here, how do we take using Chef and deploy it in AWS. So you'll be able to automate this everything. So your code gets built, everything, it will be in Nexus using Chef, you pull the code and you deploy it in AWS. So at any point of time where we can't automate anything, we do a little bit of scripting. So I'll teach you shell scripting, Python and Ruby, which I'll cover. And the last one is monitoring tool is if your server goes down, how are you being alerted? How do you, when you deploy, there'll be a lot of log files which gets created. So how do you monitor those log files and all?
Just to interrupt
Sorry?
you, is it you Puppet or Ansible? You cover only Chef.
I'm going to cover only Chef.
Okay. Is it necessary to know all the three or only one or something?
Only one is enough, Nagesh, because Okay, you join in the middle, right? So normally if you say, right, DevOps itself, we have almost like 200 tools altogether. So I can't go ahead and cover. So what normally, as per this session, that topic is, I'll teach you guys the process. Okay, I'll teach you guys the process of every tool, and the same tool, how can we implement with the other tools. When I say within Chef and Puppet, is both of them are the deployment tools. So in Chef, we just write the recipes, and here we write the what is that? Playbooks. In Ansible, we write the playbooks. So there's a simple difference. That's it. It's a words different, but the process is same. So in Chef, we use Ruby. In Puppet, we use Puppet language. Okay, so I treat you guys as you don't have any background of DevOps, and that's where I'm taking you from. Okay, if you're looking for any advanced topics, I'll help you with that. If you want only Puppet, it will be like 15 days topic. Just Puppet itself will be like 15 days topic. Okay. Any questions anyone has? Any questions anyone has?
What are the major tools that like companies are using? Like you are saying only Chef, right? So
normally what normally my sessions are like is, if you take 100 companies, right, I normally focus on 70% of the companies what they use. Like CI tools, continuous integration tools like Jenkins. So 60% of the companies use Jenkins. 10% of the companies use TeamCity. There will be 10% of the companies which use Antil Pro. There's some companies which use Bamboo. So normally how I design the sessions is major stake of the companies what tools they use. So again coming like Chef. So some companies use Chef. So some companies use Ansible. Because it's again depends upon the licensing, that's it. But at the end background or usage is same. Like AWS, Amazon Web Service. Some companies use Microsoft Azure. Some companies use what is it? Google's cloud is also there. I'm not sure what is that name. So it just differs, that's it. But at the background is the same. You provision the servers, you deploy it.
okay. So is all the tools are like open source or like we need to buy from the vendors?
When I say almost all of them are free except AWS. That also I'll tell you, if you don't have the account, don't create it now. Okay? Because AWS, it comes with a 750 hours of free training. So first 750 are free. So I'll teach you how do you manage that. Billing is also part of it. Okay. Any other questions anyone has?
So when DevOps guy faces a critical situations in like in lives like real scenarios.
No, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat it? Or Jenna, can you repeat the question once again?
Like what is the critical situations that we face normally in our real-time scenarios?
Major thing is you need to decide which tool to fit your requirement with the major stack. So people, what they do is they approach you with a problem. Sanjay, I have the code here. I want to make. I'll give you one scenario. So someone comes to you and says, Sanjay, I have my a HTML page. I wanted to put a HTML page somewhere. You do whatever you want, but at the end I should have a URL where I can embed it in the code. You got the requirement? You have a HTML page. You put it wherever you want. At the end I should have a URL. I should have a URL where I can put it in the code. So through the code, I should be able to see the contents I've written in the HTML page. Okay. So now you need to decide what fits your requirement. So there are a lot of options in my company I have. There's something called Akamai. Akamai is one company where they give you the hosting. So you just take this file, put it there automatically. Akamai comes with a URL, or put it in the AWS S3 bucket. So if you put it in S3 bucket, you come with a URL. So again, you need to know what tool satisfies your requirement. If you're able to make that call, you're done. Implementation, you can get it from net. Any tool integration, all details you'll get it from net. Because almost this tool set is there from like 5-6 years. So a lot of people have contributed. Even that I'm going to teach you guys. Have any scenario, how are you going to tackle it? That also I'm going to deal with you guys.
So in the from the day one starting, like from tomorrow, it's like are we going to take any project kind of scenarios, or like in a general scenarios that we are going to follow?
It's going to be like, I'm going to teach you the tool, and as the project scenario, how are you going to fit it? How are you going to implement it? And normally what I do is, every time I work, right? So any issues I get in the morning, I share it with you guys also. What is the issue? How did I tackle that scenario? How can we implement it in our learnings?
Right.
Okay. And even at the end of the session, right, I'm going to give you guys one whole project-like thing. You need to implement the whole CI/CD pipeline.
Process.
So you're going to implement the whole complete process. If you are able to implement at the end of the session by yourself, after the end of the training, then you're good. And if you are able to explain it with some project words and all, you can crack the interview by yourself.
Oh.
Because I know, right, this is not the first batch, guys. I've done almost like 28 batches.
No.
So I know. No.
It's
I'll
not
tell you. I'll tell you what
okay.
happens is I normally get students from US. These are the guys who have just passed out from the college. So
Right.
OPT guys and all.
OPT, CPTs, right.
Yeah. So I know how to tackle that.
Just I'm
Any
not
other
checking
questions?
you. Just I'm checking you myself, like whether
No, Jana. I
how.
got it, Jana. Because I told you, right, this is not my first batch. So Srinivas also knows me. I've done a number of batches.
Mm. Because
Okay.
I'm come from different scenarios. I'm into like I did like PHP trainings. I did like I'm into purely based out of like overall scenario business based. I mean business
Okay.
oriented scenarios I did. So.
Okay. Yeah. I got it. Yes.
Mm.
So any other questions anyone has? Okay, and regarding the sessions, or I mean, how you guys want it on weekends? I'm okay to take it on weekends because we can complete these sessions or course a little bit fast.
Yeah, I'm fine for weekends and weekdays.
Okay, I'll do one thing, guys. I'll just, I think we created a group, right? Just you guys let me know if you are okay on weekends or anything. I'll take, I have to consider everyone. It's not like one and two. So just put up like, your opinion, and then I'll decide tomorrow. From tomorrow we can start the session, or from Monday. Okay?
And also it's a festival time, right?
Yeah.
So in October, every week we have a festival. So
Yeah.
better we
So
can
that's it.
plan. My
You guys let
suggestion
me know.
is better we go with weekend. Either weekday also fine for me.
Yeah, weekday also. Weekday I'll take weekday at 9:30 to 10:30. I can take it. Okay.
Okay, so approximately we can plan for 1 month, right?
Yeah, almost like 20 sessions it will take. Yeah, Harish, I get it. Yeah. Any other questions anyone has before we wind up? Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you. I'll just message me your comfortable timings. I'll just check and see, take the maximum count, and then we'll work it out. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you.